that notice momentarily. Perfect. Hi, all. Welcome to the Better Together webinar. I am Marnie Stockman, CEO at Lifecycle Insights, and we are very excited to chat today with our girls from Breach Secure Now about the integration that we've both been working on, both companies, to talk about how we're better together. So I'm going to pass it over to Art to introduce himself.
All right, Marnie. Well, thank you. I am Art Gross. I am the CEO of Breach Secure Now. And Breach Secure Now is a channel-only, white-label human security platform. We have about 2,000 partners, about 10,000 clients, and about 500,000 users on our platform. So we're definitely all about it being MSP friendly. I also run an MSP, so I'm very knowledgeable in the MSP market. And we're excited to be here. Unfortunately, I was going to be joined by Tracy Kreitz, but Tracy is under the weather today, so I have to do all the heavy lifting for Breach Secure Now. So hopefully I don't screw up.
Tracy, you're missed. We'll let her know on the recording. Alex, how about you? Will you introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my name's Alex Farling, and I came right out of the MSP community, kind of like Art, and ran an MSP. I ran an MSP for 16 and a half years. We kind of founded Lifecycle Insights while I was still at the MSP, and the plan was for me to continue running the MSP, but Lifecycle Insights turned into kind of a boon, and I came over here and sold the MSP about a year and a half ago. So I've been doing the Lifecycle Insights thing nonstop, and what we wrote it for was really to solve for some problems I had in my MSP, which was we had a lot of data scattered across multiple systems. We had no real good way to pull all that data together, put it in a presentable, actionable format that we could take to a customer in a strategic business review or any kind of a customer update type meeting. So we actually used Breach Secure Now at my MSP, so I'm familiar and have lived in both sides of the business. We actually used HIPAA Secure Now. That was how we got started and introduced. So that's kind of my background and where I come from. And now I'm the guy that helps all of our MSP partners figure out the platform and get it cooking in their MSP.
And running an MSP, QBRs are so important, but they're really not easy, right? And that's one of the things I love about Lifecycle Insights is pulling that data, because all that prep work it used to take and pulling data together. And I just love what you guys are doing at Lifecycle Insights. So I'm thrilled to be here.
So on the conversation of QBRs, it's not easy to have, because Art, you mentioned this is all about the human security. So that's sometimes a slightly touchy conversation to have with a business owner. So Alex, we'd love to hear, because I know you've got a lot of stories around this, but can you tell us a bit about kind of the struggle of having that conversation around cybersecurity as an MSP?
Well, and I think for every MSP has their own story, right? But each of us approaches it a little bit differently. But each of us also has a customer who approaches it differently. And we've gone everywhere from the customer who says, I want to know everything anyone does on my computer anytime they're there. I want spyware software installed so I know everything. And then there's other folks who are like, that's not me. Like, let them do what they're going to do and, keep the bad stuff out, but kind of let's play hands off and not be the hyper authoritarian. And even to the point where you have companies who say, I don't want to do phishing and that kind of stuff, because I feel like it's malicious to my people and it makes them think I don't trust them. And so there's all this, I would say, misunderstanding by MSP's customers that they have to overcome to help people realize phishing isn't about catching your employee doing something bad and wrong. It's about education. And this is how we score whether or not our education works. If they're still clicking the links, the education's not working and we got to try something different. So, I think the entire conversation around cybersecurity, and especially around employee security awareness training and employee training and phishing and these kind of things, it boils down to making sure that our customer understands the piece of information we're trying to present to them simply is about knowing that you have a mature workforce who is aware of modern threats and can keep you protected, because second to misconfigurations, people clicking on stuff that they shouldn't is probably the number one reason for breaches.
Art, I suspect you're going to say a close second.
It may be number one. I don't know.
Yep. I mean, just the whole thing about having conversation around cybersecurity, as you were saying, Alex, there's some clients who are really worried. They'll come to the MSP and say, I'm really worried, protect us. And there's lots of clients who say, I don't really care. I'm too small. They're not going to focus on me. We don't have any risk. And the truth is, all businesses are at risk. And the key to selling managed services, I believe managed services and managed security now, is showing that risk. And as we all know, and everyone on this call knows, that humans are the biggest, cause of breaches. They make mistakes, right? And we're all human. We make mistakes, and being able to show the human element of security, that yes, you have employees and they could be weak. They could fall for a phishing scam. They could fall for a business email compromise. They could fall for a scam, text scam, and give access to their computer. So, it's really important to focus on those humans, and that is the easiest way to show vulnerabilities. And so if you have the majority of breaches are caused by human mistakes, it's great to focus on, the humans, the employees, and employees and employers and business owners. It's not too far-fetched. Anyone who has employees know that, employees make mistakes. They say the wrong thing to employees. To other employees, they say the wrong thing to customers. They come in late. So it isn't too hard to connect the dots between employees making mistakes, employees causing data breaches, and why you need to focus on that. And that's what excites me about being able to talk through the human element of cybersecurity.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned like falling for the tech support scam, because I'm thinking back to a specific client I had at my MSP who was really the biggest pushback when I said, we need to do anti-phishing. We need to send out some of this stuff. And they went, makes my customers think, or my employees think I don't trust them. I really don't want to do it. And I'm sitting in my office one day, and my office was literally through a door and around the corner from the help desk. We had kind of a bullpen for the help desk. I could hear everything that went on in there all day. And I hear just a ruckus erupt in the help desk. And I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? And I walk around the corner, and one of my very outspoken senior engineers is just losing her mind. She's like, this person calls me every day for something stupid. Mm-hmm. And yet when somebody called her and said they were from Microsoft, she let them on her computer instead of calling me first. Like, I know the sound of her voice. I know about her children. I know she likes chocolate chip cookies over peanut butter. And yet she let somebody log into the computer because, she didn't want to pick up the phone and call me first. She's like, I know everything. I talk to this lady all the time. And it was just a really eye-opening moment for me that said, we've got to get this training right. It's a tough conversation, because this same customer, if I picked up the phone and said, hey, so-and-so didn't complete their security training, they'd have gone, yeah, they're busy. I don't care. Click and moving on. Like, those were really tough conversations to have. You call your point of contact to talk about it. You're taking them away from what they're doing during their job. They're trying to execute on their deliverables, not worry about yours. And, you feel like you're interrupting them all the time. And so what I learned was that I could move the needle further with my customers by having this conversation when I had the leadership team in the room, right? I didn't go disturb one point of contact, but I already had these people together, and we could have a conversation about, hey, we're doing well with 80% of the people. You got one or two people over here that are maybe, in the middle. And then you got this guy down here at the bottom who we probably should cut his keyboard cable and take away his mouse, because he clicks on everything we send across his desk, right? And every company has that balance. But there's a certain communication that I found worked for me, which was just to have that conversation when we're already in the room, as opposed to trying to stir it up out of nowhere when somebody flunked a test, somebody clicked on a phishing email, some event happened that made me want to go talk about it. And I had to really pull back, because I wanted to unload on it right then when they were making my team do more work, or when they hadn't done something right, or when it was a hot button moment.
And it really comes down to the data. And what we're going to talk about today is, you want to be able to show which of those employees are your weakest link, right? Which ones need to have more phishing attempts at them, or simulated phishing, which one need more training. And if you don't have that insight, you don't know. I mean, you hire employees, and you let them do personality tests, and you train them, and you know a lot about them from the job, but you really don't know what their strength or weaknesses when it comes to cybersecurity. That's where the insight really is important, and that's really what excites me about this integration, is because we have a lot of insight into employee actions, employee strength or weaknesses, and I think it's a great thing to be talking through in QBRs and just those conversations, like you said, Alex, with senior management, and showing that data. And really, and the other piece is, I believe that human security sells the rest of your security stack. If you can show that there are some weak employees, and we'll do everything we can to train them and phish them and monitor the dark web and all of that stuff. But if they make a mistake, you better have disaster recovery, you better have two-factor authentication, you better have password management, because if you rely on these employees who potentially can make a mistake, you could be a ransomware victim or a data breach victim. This leads, to how do we protect you against human error?
And I like your language there. It's they've made a mistake. This isn't an employee acting malicious, right?
Right.
There's a lot we can do to protect against malicious employees. There are certain places where there's only so much you can do to protect against somebody who's malicious. But a mistake, really, generally, and typically, the person who did it is sorry, right? When you've dealt with these, hey, somebody has to call and tell you that their Office 365 mailbox is now sending out 10,000 spam messages an hour because they clicked on a link. They're sorry, they're embarrassed, it's not pleasant for them either. And this is stuff that is, through education, preventable. And I think that's the important thing, is that these are legitimate accidents. But,
and I want to say this to the MSPs on the line. Anyone who's done help desk knows that users are sometimes a pain, right? They make mistakes and they cause you headaches. But as you just said, Alex, there's no employee that wants to cause a data breach, because as soon as you've caused that data breach, you start to worry, am I going to get fired? How am I going to pay my bills? Am I going to impact the company? So people make mistakes. They just as people don't wake up and say, I'm going to just unplug my USB drive and say my computer is not working or something like that. I don't really think people do that. Although, there are some users that, you wonder.
You question.
You question it. But for the most part, nobody wants to cause that mistake. And I think it really is education and continued education, and get employees to start thinking about, what do I have to do to protect myself, protect my company, and not be that person who causes that breach.
So I always say this about QBRs, but I feel like the same is true with security awareness for the human element. Is people historically have always talked about it, but haven't done anything about it. But what Breach Secure Now brings to the table, and what we bring to the table for QBRs, is really doing something about it, right? Because you said, when you have data, it's no longer a story, or I heard from a friend that had this issue.
Right.
We now have data behind it. And really, we're going to have Alex kind of hop on and show what Breach Secure Now data in Lifecycle Insights really looks like for folks, because it does tell that story, because the data doesn't lie.
And just before we do that, I'll just give a little bit of background for those who don't know Breach Secure Now. We do training and phishing and dark web monitoring, and we have written policies. And what we do, we combine all of this information, and we have an employee secure score. So think of it as like a FICO credit score that measures your security strength. So what we're going to see is the components of that ESS. We're going to see the components of the phishing and phishing fail rates. So that is our, if you think about Breach Secure Now, we're trying to quantify or quantify an employee's security strength, and we use our employee secure score. So if you start to see that in this, I wanted to explain what that was up front.
Alex, do you want me to give you screen? You want me to...
I think I have control here. There we go. So I'm going to jump into Lifecycle Insights and let everybody kind of check it out. Feel free, as I go through this, to jump in and throw something in chat, or throw a question up on the Q&A. Happy to take whatever happy path everybody wants to see us go through here. But Lifecycle Insights from the top-down view. Our company is really built around taking all that data that you have in disparate systems, whether it be IT Glue or ConnectWise or Breach Secure Now, and bringing those data points together to make something actionable. We talk a lot about, clearing away the FUD, clearing away the thud factor stuff from the 600-page, security scan report, and boiling it really down to and distilling it down to the piece of information that's important to your customer. So in front of you right now, you see a bunch of graphs, a bunch of charts. These are literally just data points that we use to let us know where we're at with the customer and whether or not we're ready for a quarterly business review. And we talk about data quality, how clean is the data in our ConnectWise, or what's their technology debt, how much technology do they own that should have been replaced by now, or something like that. We have these conversations around everything from asset lists and user lists, which is one of the big things that Art's program is going to really supplement. We build you a budget forecast. We help you make recommendations on how to improve things once we've done a security assessment. So we run a security assessment. We realize that you're not doing something like dark web monitoring, and we'll make a recommendation that we deploy dark web monitoring for your organization, show the cost, et cetera, and walk it through the budget and show how it all works. So these are the things that we kind of pull together in the platform, but we're going to step into the user list and kind of talk about that one first. And I'm just going to filter my messy demo data, so pay no attention to the moving dots here. But what we're looking at here is data that's combined from 3 different data sources, all compiled together in one report that we can take out and show to a partner or to an MSP's customer. So what we're going to see here is that Steve Jonestown is he has this email address. He exists in ConnectWise, so he's supported by my MSP. I'm charging $300 an hour or $300 a month for him, or $200 a month for him as a managed seat. He's in Breach Secure Now, so he's doing his testing and his training, and he's in Microsoft 365, and he consumes a license. And we know the last time that he logged in. If my demo data was healthy, he'd be logging in regularly. This looks like a guy who probably doesn't work here anymore. But what we're going to notice from the Breach Secure Now side is I can actually look through employee security scores, right? And I can see the guy who's the most secure versus the person who's the least secure. I can actually see the people who have a higher phishing fail rate than normal. And I always kind of joke, hey, here's the guy with the mediocre security score who, isn't doing his micro trainings, who has a 22% phishing fail rate and only got an 80 on his annual. This is the guy maybe I'm worried about. This is the guy that's maybe worth having a conversation about. But when I pick up the phone and just say, hey, there's some things about Patty that make me nervous, nobody wants to have that conversation. So when we get into this leadership meeting, I can present this report. I can talk through supportable users and who we're billing you for. I can touch on Breach Secure Now and some of this kind of stuff at the same time talking about, hey, is this user still here, or are they out on indefinite COVID leave? What happened to this person who's not logging in anymore? And we can talk about humans and just as a whole, with Breach Secure Now as a very loaded data point that lets me drive into, who are the people that make me nervous? Who are the people that ought to be doing more training? If I have a HIPAA requirement to do annual training, do I have people who haven't met that annual training requirement? And at the end of the year, this should have been a hot topic for me to come out and let this customer know, hey, you got 3 people here who aren't doing their annual training. One of them's billing contact, so we probably don't care. But we got 2 people here who didn't meet their annual HIPAA requirement. What are we going to do about this?
Yeah, and if you just look at the 350 and the phishing fail rate and the score, you can just tell this employee is ignoring training. They're not taking the annual training, they're not taking their micro trainings, they're basically ignoring it. So what you have is an employee that is not getting educated. They're not being made aware of scams and phishing attempts. There's a good chance that Stacy is going to fall for a phishing attack, as opposed to Robin, who has a 90, who's done, has a 725 as an ESS. You could tell the difference between employees, which ones are engaged, which ones are not engaged, and which ones probably should have a conversation before they cause a data breach.
It's funny you say it, you mentioned the 725 and all that, because I remember at my MSP, one day on one of my tests, I clicked a wrong answer on something and I don't remember what it was. And so I had less than a perfect score on my ESS, and my staff just rode me about that forever because they were competitive about it. It was who can have the best security scores and all that kind of stuff. And I was number 1 in the company for a long time, and I made a mistake and somebody got past me, and they just rode me forever about it. But the competitiveness of it really does help, right? You guys have built a little bit of competitive gamification into there to help people want to be competitive about this.
Yep.
So as we walk away from the user list, I'll just say, this becomes one of those reports in our strategic business reviews that you might lead with in the beginning and have some pretty serious conversations about. As we get these things under control, these become data points we don't have to talk about as much. As we figure out our processes and know that we're offboarding people and don't have them in 365 and we're not paying for users we don't need, as these numbers start to improve on everybody, and this becomes a, hey, nothing to see here report. In our report builder, and I'll show you in a few minutes, you can move this report to the bottom. You can remove it to the end, move it to the end of your conversation. But I always recommend still providing it to your customers. In a lot of compliance scenarios, a human inventory is required, as is some sort of training and confirmation of training. And this is a really easy way to get some information across to your customer that says, hey, for PCI compliance, we took a list of all your users. We know who you have. We know who we're supporting. We're giving them training. Everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing. So valuable report to transparently give to your customer, even if it isn't leading the conversation.
Yeah, and the truth is, that Robin could be at a 725 today and then get very, confident and stop caring about this or falling for phishing scams. And the next thing you know, she's at a 600. So, it isn't like you get to a part where I don't need to learn anymore, right? Think about all, as
Bad
all
guys
of
get
us.
better and smarter.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm going to skip ahead to our larger security awareness report. This brings in more data out of Breach Secure Now and kind of presents it in a fashion that I'll show you in a few minutes how we can print it out and send it off. But we really like the ability in Lifecycle Insights to be able to slice and dice data. We have the ability here to manage the columns, so you could add or remove any of these columns that you didn't want to present or talk through with one of your customers. But in my mind, one of the coolest things is something we call swatching, where we can wipe away colors that we don't want to see if I'm qualified to operate it. And I can bring up just the folks who are in red. If I wanted to have a conversation with my customer about just the folks who needed additional training, maybe we're putting together a, hey, if you're below a certain threshold, we need to get you additional training. Maybe it's my red and my yellow folks. But we have this feature deployed throughout the platform where we can, with these color swatches, filter data in really unique ways. And the other thing we can do is sort by things like number of breaches and things like that. So we can bubble to the top that guy who's been breached twice. We have here 2 breaches. They were ranked medium by Breach Secure Now, and they both belong to the same employee. So we can see here that Mr. Coverdale is partaking in some websites where some breaches have occurred. Whether he's a LinkedIn guy or whatever it may be, this may not be anything bad. But we need to make sure that we're having a conversation with this guy about password reuse, making sure that whoever got breached doesn't have those passwords reused anywhere else and those kind of things.
And
so,
Alex, that's exactly what I was saying. It's a great way of saying, okay, there's been 2 breaches. What's that mean? That cyber criminals may have his password. So then we need to worry about multi-factor authentication. We need to worry about password management and reuse. And we need to educate about reuse and why you should not be reusing passwords. But it also starts to lead towards the rest of your security stack and some of those recommendations that you were talking about earlier.
And that flows super nicely into where I was headed. So thanks for the softball, Art.
Audience plan.
Yeah. So actually where I was headed from this was the fact that one of the most important things about Lifecycle Insights is taking all of this data and boiling it down to something that's presentable to your client. So if we go over here into our report builder, what we're going to do is we're going to be able to pull reports from multiple different systems, put them in a fashion that are presentable to our customer. And I want to talk through a couple of these. Actually, I lied. Before I do that, I want to touch on one more thing. As we go through risk assessments, and this is the component that we use to really identify whether somebody's adopting all of my policies and procedures and best practices, if somebody's consumed all of the products and services that I offer. Art mentioned, hey, are they using MFA? Do we have Duo deployed across the environment? Do we have Okta deployed across the environment? Whatever tools we're using to add those additional security layers, each of those should be represented in an assessment question. So when we go run an assessment against a customer, we're going to be checking boxes. And the thing I like about Breach Secure Now is not just that it enables me to talk about other boxes, but it actually checks 3 or 4 off of most MSPs' product and solution list, right? We do a lot of talking about what's in your stack, how are your customers aligned to your stack, building out that stack. I'm going to cheat and use the search function up here today because I've got a few questions in here, but examples of questions in our platform that Breach Secure Now is the perfect answer for, right? Are we doing social engineering and phishing training, right? Is any of this happening inside of our organization? A red answer might be, hey, we're not doing it at all. A yellow answer might be that, hey, we've purchased it, but we haven't really implemented it all. I'm sure there are some MSPs on this call who could raise their hand and say, I've got customers who have purchased it. They haven't fully implemented it. They're not all on board. And then we can give the green answer that, hey, we're doing it. It's a process. We've got it all in place. It's approved by leadership. It's supported by leadership, and it's actually happening. We also talk about dark web monitoring, right? So that's another question that it's either in place or it's not, and we're using it as a key indicator of compromise or an indicator of problem. So that's another question that we can answer with the Breach Secure Now data that we're pulling into the tool. And the other ones that I'll talk about, you'll see the word policy on here, no less than, okay, it's in here 48 times. We have a long list of policies and procedures that we recommend that our partners use. And, I don't think Art was going to talk about this today, but I'm going to make him. Breach Secure Now offers you a library of policies and procedures that you can take to your customers, customize to their use, but give you a starting template. And Art, do you want to talk about that for just a second? Because I used a lot of those at my MSP with some pretty good success.
It's NIST-based policies and procedures. We look at administrative, physical, and technical safeguards. So, we give you a starting point, and it doesn't take a whole lot to implement that. And then also to work with your clients to customize that around them. The one thing I want to say on top of all of this, and not to cut you off here, but these questions, and I love these questions, because if you start to look at cyber insurance applications, these are the exact questions that are on there. So if your clients are looking for cyber insurance, they're going to be faced with applications that have these exact questions. So if you can help them up front be able to say satisfactory or it's in place, they're going to be able to get insurance. And if you can't, or if they can't say that they have this in place, they're probably not going to get insured, or those premiums are going to go up. So,
and it's really nice when your customer comes back and says, what do you mean I can't get insurance because I don't have MFA enabled, for you to be able to come back and go, well, we marked MFA red on the last 3 risk assessments we did for you. We've been telling you for 1.5 years that you need it. It's time for you to get off the pot, right? We need to go ahead and move forward with this. Now it's your insurance company telling you. So yeah, these templates that we give you are a lot of best practice. They're adopted and borrowed from CIS, from NIST, from insurance company assessments. You can run a specific assessment in here, or you can use these bigger ones. We also use some check boxes that above and beyond policy and procedure. We had one in place, and I guess it's not on this assessment, but I had one in place. It might be. Yeah, here we go. So HIPAA and regulatory compliance, are all the BAAs in place? So I had 2 questions around HIPAA regulatory requirements, because one was, do they have a compliance program? Are they working themselves in the direction of doing the right things? And that was one answer. Hey, red, we're ignoring HIPAA. Green, we've got a policy in place. Maybe a yellow, hey, we're not perfect, but we're starting. And then compliance outside of that with, hey, do we have all of our BAAs in place? Because that seemed to me to be an easy place where a lot of my HIPAA clients fell down. And it was just one more reminder to give them an easy poke and go, hey, go update those BAAs, go do that one more thing that gets you thinking back about HIPAA compliance. So I think I've touched on 4 or 5 questions that Breach Secure Now can answer, aside from about 13 policy and procedure questions that we use. So of the tools that we recommend or that we work with, I think that Breach Secure Now can answer a large chunk of items off of a risk assessment to show you exactly what's going on with your customer. So lots of things that we can either chalk up red or green based on what's going on from Breach Secure Now. Anybody want to add anything to that before I move on?
No, I think you hit on it. That you're looking for the ways of saying yes, these are in place, and of course there's not only Breach Secure Now, but there's going to be other software vendors that you're going to need, and other tools that you'll need to be able to implement. But once again, this is really good to be able to say, 1, for insurance, 2, if you're a HIPAA regulated entity, or 3, what I was saying before, if an employee makes a mistake, do you have this stuff in place? And we've already gone through, and why do I need a mobile device policy? Well, if your employee loses their phone, and we see Bob, who has an ESS of, he's not taking training and awareness, and is maybe
doesn't
not
lock his phone. Yeah.
And you can connect the dots right to why you need this policy or why you need a tool in place. So human security leads to the rest of your stack and your safeguards.
And I love the talking point of where you see human security break down, and enables you to go have the conversation about those other data points and these other products and services. So I'm going to step forward now into Report Builder and what the customer deliverable looks like. There's probably some combination of 40 or so reports we can generate out of Lifecycle Insights. We're not going to spend too much time generating all of them, but I do want you guys to see just a couple of them. So I'm going to go ahead and just build them from scratch. We're going to add a couple of components here.
As you do that, I've got some questions in chat.
Yep.
Would love to kind of help weave it into this piece now. Can you talk about where we're pulling the information that's not coming from Breach Secure Now?
Yeah.
So the integrations that we have, so folks understand kind of what they need to populate Lifecycle Insights.
So in this particular case, in the user report, which is a great example because it pulls data from 3 different sources, we're going to pull data from your primary integration to us, which in this example is ConnectWise. But it could be Autotask, it could be Synchro, it could be Halo PSA, or it could be IT Glue. So any of those 5 can feed us users. Okay, who is your standard user? Then we marry them to Breach Secure Now and improve and add additional data points with Breach Secure Now. And then we do the same with Microsoft 365. So we directly integrate with 365 to get the products in use and the last activity date on the account to improve that info. So just here, we're using 3 different integrations. And then we have some additional data points that we'll pull. We can use LionGuard for some of that data. If you're a LionGuard partner, we get some additional insights from them. We do Meraki and Cisco iOS devices through Cisco's integrations to give you purchase dates and end of life dates on the assets that we pull from this ConnectWise or primary integration. And then we'll also go a step further and do Dell, HP, Lenovo, and Microsoft Surface warranty lookups for all of the assets that we identify in your PSA or IT glue. So those are some of the places where we're bringing the data from. And our goal is really to strip it down and make it presentable in smaller data points that are actionable to your customer. So as an example, this might be a report that I want to go show to my customer. And if we wanted to remove anything from here, you can always manage the columns and say, hey, there's a couple of things that we don't need to talk about. Let's make this a more manageable report. But this is the report that we want to go out to our customer. So that's going to be a component of my risk assessment or of my presentation to my client, along with our Breach Secure Now template, which brings forward all of the information that we've got here. Now, let's say I don't want to bore my customer with all of these users. I'm just going to boil it down to only actually showing overall the users who are problematic. So we'll filter that away. And then from there, what we can do is add the other reports that we want. We could add a cover page. We can add an executive summary and an agenda. We can add a risk assessment summary to show all the questions that we were able to tick red and green. And then we'll go ahead and save this. And I've got to save this template. So now that I've saved it, I can either print it to a Word document or I can present it to my customer, and that's going to pop out of the window, and I've got to go chase down another window. So this is going to present to my customer in a report builder or in a presentation window. It's kind of a PowerPoint Lite that lets us do a presentation here for our customer just by clicking back and forth. If I had 10 reports that I was reviewing with them, including a financial budget and a couple of recommendations that I was going to make for that customer, I'd be able to flip through all of those over here on the left with the contents there, or back and forth with the arrows. So that's how Lifecycle Insights takes this data, kind of feeds it into the meat grinder and mixes it in with all the other data that we use and puts it back out in a fashion that you can have this conversation at the right time and place with your customers when you've already got that leadership team in the room.
So
that report builder is really powerful. You know, to be able to generate these reports. Clearly, the more integrations you have, the more data in here, the better. But it really is powerful to be able to put these reports together so quickly.
Yeah,
so, Alex, can you switch, like now that you're in the budget, maybe switch to Get Well Medical or something so you can see how this populates? So once you've built this template, right?
Yep.
When you switch companies, it builds the exact same stack. You know, you're kind of like your portfolio of reports over and over again. So it's always active.
Let's see if I can find an assessment that's actually been filled out for these guys. There we go. So if I build this out a little further and put in 4 reports, now you can see I've got a few extra things that I can walk through here. I'm going to do a budget and a user list. I probably want to lead with my assessment to talk about what the status quo is. So here's how we scored on an assessment. Here's the things we think we ought to fix. They're in red with a recommendation next to them. I've gone ahead and stacked all this out for this customer. Now I want to do this exact same work for another customer. So what I'm going to do with this is just go up here, grab another customer. Hopefully this customer has all of these items. So which assessment do I want to present? I simply pick the one that I want to show them. One with the answers on it, preferably. There we go. I grab a budget forecast. It's already pre-configured, 5 years, just like the last one that I set up. Find me another tool that can get you a budget that's showing you 2026 expense today. This is something we're really, really proud of. And all of this is automated. It all comes from your asset list. So there's nothing you have to do to build that. Don't have a good healthy user list in Get Well Medical, but that's okay. So if we had all of this data under this client, it would all be presentable just by flipping clients and making sure that I've grabbed the assessment that I want to present. So super simple. About 10 minutes, I can go together and build a 7 to 10 to 15 page report that I'm going to go present to one of my customers and talk through it according to the business review.
That does remind me, when you're saying that, tomorrow, I'm going to put this in chat to everybody. Tomorrow, I'm actually going to walk through that in a 30-minute Thursday. So if folks want to see more on the details of that, I just put the invite in the chat.
You know what I really like about what you just showed is really the consistency of the reports from client to client, because the truth is you want to get really good at delivering QBRs, right? You want to be able to go through it in a consistent manner. You want to be able to talk about answer objections. You want to, the questions that clients may ask you, and how to deliver it and how to connect the dots between, maybe the security awareness to the risk assessment, to the budgeting and all of that. So, having that template and reuse for client after client, really, I think is really powerful.
So, and that really leads to a bigger conversation, which I don't think you were intending to set up, but the conversation is account management, and this VCIO role is one of the hardest for MSPs to scale, right? This is this thing where it's 4 hours, it's 6 hours, it's 8 hours. We've even heard 12 hours a quarter to prep for this meeting. That number pains me because at my MSP, I had a sign over my desk that said, if you have to do it twice, automate it. And we do this process by hand in spreadsheets in an incredibly painful fashion. When I go export a user list out of Breach Secure Now, I go export a user list out of Microsoft, I export a user list out of all these, cobble it together. Then I do the same with assets. Then I go create a spreadsheet of have they checked all the boxes? Are they using all my products? Are they in alignment with my stack? Then I go do that one and present that. And then it looks like I've duct taped together 6 different reports. None of it's clean, none of it's really clean and presentable. And this gives you everything on the same page with your little footer on the bottom with your logo, and cover page for your customer and all that, and just keeps it neat and clean and presentable. And it cuts the delivery time at least by 50%, usually by 75. We're seeing MSPs who are spending 5, 6, 7 hours, spending an hour and a half to get.
And I like that you pick and choose which ones you want to show during that meeting, because you don't want to go through all of it. Last time we talked about budgeting. Let's not talk about budgeting now. Let's talk about whatever the risk assessment or training. So it's very easy to customize based on what that agenda for that meeting is going to be.
And the more mature your customer, the more of that you're going to see, right? If we were really mature with a customer that we've been working with for 6, 8, 12 months, as we go through, we're going to have a much better built out stack that is the complete conversation that we have with that client. And in many cases, for example, I'll show 2 budgets to a mature client. They'll want a near-term tactical budget that talks about the next 6 months. I did this last year, so I showed them December in the first 6 months of this year. And then a 5-year budget that talks about, hey, when is the really bad year going to happen? But then we'll also be loading in things like, hey, what are we going to talk about as far as the security stuff goes? When are we going to talk about the users and the actual components around those? And all of that fits into the regular conversation in this template that now that I've built the template and built the standard for my MSP, 2, 3, 4, 5 account managers can all deliver a very similar experience. And then you get this, at my MSP, it was the Delaware Micro way, right? Your MSP way that delivers the DNA. That's who you are. That's why they have a relationship with you, because gone are the days where managed services separates you. Anybody with a credit card can be a managed service provider today, and the industry's seeing that and reeling from the consequences of that. So it'll be interesting to see what legislation or what the insurance companies do to drive that piece. But what we're doing here is taking data that really needs to be actionable out of a platform like Breach Secure Now, getting in front of your client early. So when the insurance company comes knocking and goes, hey, are you doing dark web monitoring? Do you have a social engineering and phishing training program in place? You can say, not only do we have it, but look at how long we've been working on it. It was in here 3 years ago. Check the checkbox. We're doing all the right things. And here's the results of our last quarterly business review to prove it.
So the only thing I wanted to really add is that, this integration, this data to be in Lifecycle Insight is free to our partners. We're pulling that out of our breach prevention platform. We now have that fully implemented. So, if you have questions, if you are a Breach Secure Now partner and you need help configuring it, reach out to our operations group. But the data, if your client is in a breach prevention platform, a HIPAA breach prevention platform, HIPAA BPP, then that data can flow right through very, very easily. And the configuration is a matter of minutes. So it's pretty easy.
So Alex, I'm putting in the chat the link to the article on
Okay.
what that looks like.
Perfect.
But if you also want to show the pricing page when you're finished with that.
Oh, sure.
Questions around that.
And if you go here, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that's the article. I just put it in the chat.
Yep. So you can find it in our help section, or you can grab it there. And I will pull up the pricing page real fast. She's throwing me curveballs. I wasn't ready for that one.
Sorry.
Okay. People want to know.
Yeah.
So we do make all of our pricing public up to 200 companies. This is how many active clients you're actually selecting from the integration. Oh, I didn't even, yeah, sorry. This is how many active clients you're actually selecting in the integration and pulling over from your primary data source, your ConnectWise, your Autotask, your IT Glue, your Halo, your Synchro. So you don't have to bring every customer you have. We don't charge you per asset. We don't charge you per user. It's strictly a flat cost for 5 companies or 25 companies, et cetera. If you need pricing above and beyond this price, don't hesitate to reach out to us. It's fairly standardized pricing, but the pricing page just gets a little ugly. And again, even at the 5 client package, we give you all the integrations you need to sync up to the folks at Breach Secure Now and all the rest of your tools.
So while you're on that page, can you highlight at the top there the integration pieces and talk through that again? We have another question in chat about just if you could just outline again. I know you just said them, but the question came in as you were saying them.
No, I see it there. So Bill, what we've got is one primary integration. You're going to pick from ConnectWise, Autotask, IT Glue, Synchro, Halo PSA, right? Those are the 5 that can be your primary integration. If you choose IT Glue as your primary integration, we'll still let you sync up ConnectWise Manage or Autotask or Halo or Synchro so that we can do a little bit of reading of extra data out of those tools, but we'll go get your assets out of IT Glue. So those 5 are the big 5. Pretty much everyone then uses the Microsoft 365 integration to go get more user data. And then there's a few, and then pretty much everyone uses Dell, HP, Lenovo, and Microsoft Surface warranty lookups. Cisco and Cisco Meraki warranty lookups are in use by a good chunk of people, but not everyone. And then if you're also a partner of LionGuard or Breach Secure Now, you can integrate those core pieces and bring that data over as well. So Breach Secure Now being the most recent integration that we've
and similar to what Art said, there's no charge for additional integration. So if you have all of that data, we will take all of it. Sorry.
And I know what you're thinking. It's too cheap. I'm sorry. We seriously intended to build this as a platform that was an easy place to get started for MSPs to go out and do security business reviews and really have this strategic conversation. We know that there's a lot of people competing for wallet share to get in you guys' pockets. So we do everything we can to keep it affordable, but make it a pretty powerful platform that'll do the trick for you.
And I love that, you're MSP friendly, like we are, with no contracts and canceling, because, if it doesn't show value, you shouldn't be locked in. So, I think that is underappreciated.
We say it as we say it as if we don't earn our keep, then come have a conversation with us, because we shouldn't be doing business with it. This is a tool that should make you money.
And most folks start, frankly, with a free trial to see if it does work and suit their needs, right? So try 5 active customers, see what your data looks like, see where you are in the process, hop on a call with us, any of those things, and then expand from there.
Yeah. And so Kevin, I see you asking about SOC solutions like Rocket Cyber. I don't have an immediate need to, or like an immediate, they're not on our roadmap today, I guess is what I should say. We've talked about how and if those types of tools can help answer some questions or help present some useful data. The data set that they have varies very widely from SOC to SOC partner, and none of them really presented in a unified and standardized way. So very similar to what the guys over at Breach Secure Now had to go through. A lot of these guys would have to build an API for us to be able to do anything with them, or at least strongly overhaul it to make it more standardized and usable. And Art and his team actually built an API just so that we could go snag this data. So it's a big lift. And I question whether or not there's actually data in the SOC platform that is truly strategic in the long-term conversation with your customer. And I say that because we try and break apart and really distinguish between tactical and strategic. And in my mind, tactical could be a ticket, an email, a phone call, and a thing you can squash with a ticket, an email, or a phone call. And really with strategic, we're looking at much bigger longer term action items that take multiple months or multiple quarters to get done, whether they flow into budgeting, whether they're about risk assessment. That's not to say there's not a lot of data at Rocket Cyber that you couldn't use to answer risk assessment questions, just like the data that we've always manually pulled from Breach Secure Now until, that are we doing, are we doing our security awareness training? Are we doing all these other things? Your SOC solution might might enable you to check a green box for, are we doing vulnerability detection? Are we doing, active threat hunting or anything like that? Rocket Cyber monitored firewalls at my MSP. So, there's a lot of individual questions you can answer and places you can guide that assessment when you have more powerful tools like that at your disposal. But a direct integration, and I'd love for you to email me and prove me wrong. I just don't see the really significant value of a direct integration to somebody like that. So I will, though, just in the sake of being transparent.
And one thing that you said,
give you my
Alex,
email so you can give me what your thought was on if there is some data that you think we ought to have.
and the one thing just to add about the integration, we did build the integration on the API to enable this data flow, and it really came from our partners. Our partners came to us asking, "Do you integrate with Lifecycle Insights?" And I told both of you, I was like, "What are they? Who are they? What do they do?" This was months ago, and I wasn't even sure what they did. But when I found out, I was like, "Wow, that it seems like a perfect fit. If you're going to be, VCIO or QBRs, our data should really be there." So
I feel like we started this journey half a COVID ago. I don't know what that really equates out to, but
so, but yeah. Do we have any other questions from the audience?
I think we've covered everything that's in the chat.
Yeah, I've definitely wrapped up the ones.
I'll just repeat on the BSN side. If you are a BSN partner and you want help, reach out to our operations group. We have documentation on how to enable this. We'll also walk through it with you. And if you're interested in Breach Secure Now, feel free to go to breachsecurenow.com. We have a free trial as well, and we'd love to talk to you about Breach Secure Now and how we integrate with Lifecycle Insights.
Yeah, go get yourselves a pair of free trials today, and we'll get y'all squared away. Two for the price of zero. There you go. There you go.
Perfect. Well, I will stop the recording then.